Really, I was about to quit esports in 2019. I was so bad. If I started right now, I would not get a gig. Trust me. But I was wrong. I was terribly wrong. And there's nothing wrong, with
I know you guys have been waiting for this for a very long time. Podcasts weren't really coming and you guys wanted one. So today, I probably have one of your favorite figures on the show with me. It's going to be none other than Mr. Ranjit Patel. Mr. Patel, also known as MambaSr, and close ones call him Mamba.
Yes. But I think you should just go with a friend, a good friend of yours.
A good
because
friend.
everything else is, yeah.
A very good friend, actually. A very good friend. But again, you've started this thing even before I knew esports existed. So you're like a very senior figure to me.
Way to make me feel old, but yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
All right, that wasn't the point. It was a very fair compliment. But again, on that note, I guess I'll start off with enough of flattering. I'll just start bombarding questions to you. You started casting even before like me and all the current FreeFire audience knew esports existed. I mean, including me. I never knew esports existed. You probably started casting by 2016, 17?
16 Jan. So half of our viewer base was probably in diapers. Okay,
Exactly.
It's true though, because look, the demographic that we have is what, 9 to 14.
Yeah.
And that's obviously, wow, I just started off in the worst possible way. It makes me sound so cocky, which I'm not. Ladies and gents, if you know me, you know. But if you don't know me, then I guess you can censor it. Also, yeah, how free are we supposed to be in this conversation? Because I don't know if I'm supposed to hold back, if I'm supposed to just
Just express yourself. Just express yourself.
Fair enough. Yeah. So yeah, it's been a while. I think it's been 6 years. I started in Jan 2016. So yeah, pretty much. I think there were like four casters in the country, like in total. CSGO had two. That was Blair and I. Then in Dota 2, there was obviously Mr. Patel, that is Nishant Patel. Then I believe Vivek started a while later, but there was somebody else also. I kind of forget the name.
Floki started around that time as well, right?
No. Floki started much later. He started like mid 2017 or late 2017, as far as I know.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, the point basically is like when you started, did you know, right, esports is going to blow up or there's going to be opportunities later on as well? Like what was the plan? Because as far as you've been very vocal about it, you've been a competitive player before you tried your hand out at competitive, and then you sort of thought that casting would be a more wise financial option. So
yeah, dude, it's funny because I'll tell you what, 2016, right? Players did not make money unless you're like best team in the country. I was playing for this team called Simplex Gaming, and I'm sure there are VODs available online that you guys can watch. But unless you're the best team in the country, there was no way you were going to make money. There were not a lot of tournaments. There were like 5-6 tournaments happening, which had a decent amount of prize pool. Even that was not good enough, and it was not sustainable. Even if you won all the tournaments, even the salary teams, right? We had like two teams which were getting paid salary at that point. I believe one was Entity, and the other one, for a brief stint, I still remember there was Dare to Dream Eternals, and there was one more before that called Neckbreak, which did make some waves outside. Illusions as well. There were a couple of teams. These are some really old names. But yeah, you practically did not make any money. I mean, you can go way back as well. You can talk about 2007, 8, ATE, NSD, and whatnot. But salaries only started coming in much later, and those are also like 20,000 rupees a month, which is definitely not sustainable. And I clearly was not a part of the team which was the best in the country. I was simply not good enough in CSGO. But yeah, that's when I figured I got an opportunity to cast, which was a sheer accident. It's a completely different story in itself. But I figured, you know what? It's a more financially secure option for me. At that point, it made a lot of sense. But then, of course, the mobile boom happened, and now we see like massive prize pools and whatnot. But yeah, that's pretty much the reason why I moved to casting full time.
So like you think like it's more of a thing now, right? Casting, you can talk about it as an occupation, as a full-time occupation, people, and it's like, as compared to 2016, now 2022, you think like casting is a good option for people who want to like sustain themselves as a full-time occupation?
I mean, I really don't like the way this question is framed, right? Because okay, it's not something you do because it's a job. It's something you do because you love to do it.
Yeah,
trust me.
Understand.
In gaming and esports especially, you can't survive if you're looking at it as an opportunity to make money. there's no way in hell you're going to last more than a year over here, because you give up on your social life, you don't have a personal life, you don't have a love life. All you do is game, game, game. You're trying to better your skill set. And that's something I talked about last night on my Instagram as well. I did an EMA,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
I asked a question if I have any regrets about esports, and I told them I don't have any regrets. It's just that if there's one thing I could wish for is a healthy social life, but I think you and I, we both know that's not really possible.
Yeah.
So look, sure, it is sustainable if you're out there, you're one of the best casters in the country. You can make decent amount of money, no doubt. But for people who are just starting out, you better have a backup option, because it's only going to get more competitive from this point on. I'm not saying this to demotivate you. I'm just telling you the harsh reality.
Truth.
Sure, the industry is probably like, okay, I'm just going to give you an arbitrary number to give you context to how much we've grown right over the years. Um, I still feel like we have like an 80% headroom to grow as an industry in India. So sure, it's going to be a bit of a struggle for people who are starting out right now. But if you can survive and sustain yourself for the next 5 years, who knows? Maybe you'll be the one making a bank.
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to kind of double click on what you just said over there. Like you mentioned, being the best in the country, you probably would be making a bank now. Ladies
Yeah.
and gentlemen, for those who don't know, Mamba actually has won several awards regarding the same as well, being the best in the country, being the best in FreeFire Esports as well. So it's been a while for you, but this next question is exactly about the same thing. Like, how did you manage to stay relevant for this long?
Oh, this one's a good question. How do you manage to stay relevant? Keep your eyes and ears open. You make sure the tournament or the event that you've picked up, you do justice to it, and don't limit yourself to one game. And that's a mistake that I made. I made that mistake when PUBG Mobile came out. I still remember one of the very first events that happened. I mean, obviously, I had a college thing going on as well at that point, but I was not very
Mm-hmm.
keen on moving from PC esports to mobile esports, because I was born and brought up with a keyboard and mouse.
Yeah.
And the day PUBG Mobile actually released, I was like, dude, there's no way, you will be able to watch a tournament on this. At least for people who were initiated with what esports was like, right? I was concerned about the quality of matches, but I was wrong. I was terribly wrong. And there's nothing wrong, with the fact that there's nothing wrong with admitting the fact that you were wrong. So being relevant, dude, you can't stick to one game and expect yourself to survive. You will have to expand on what your skill set is. So going from a tactical shooter to a battle royale is something I've done. So I used to cast CS:GO.
Mm-hmm.
Then Valorant came out. I had a brief stint with a team in Valorant as well, where I was playing, and then Free Fire happened in the middle, where I started casting Free Fire. So yeah, you just have to keep expanding. You have to keep your eyes and ears open. If there's a new game coming up, have a look. If you like it, do it. That's how you stay relevant.
But again, like, don't you think that kind of brings up a conflict of interest where ideally a particular game or a particular publisher would want you to stick true to the game, a particular community would want you to stick true to the same as well.
Like this
When you
question.
kind of spread your wings out wide, don't you think it's sort of contradictory to what you actually want in the end product?
Um, okay, let me just condense your question, right, for people who are. I know exactly what you're talking about. So a lot of times, publishers will obviously want the talent to work only with your game, which is fair, because then you don't want to mix up. You you want people who are doing your tournaments, who are playing in your tournaments, or maybe who are commentating or casting in your tournaments or in your game. You want their identity to be intertwined with your identity.
Yeah.
Let's take two examples. Say Free Fire and PUBG Mobile are two of the biggest games in the country right now. Both battle royale, very similar, but obviously they have that exclusive talent pool, right?
Yeah.
Usually you don't see a lot of crossover in that. But here's the thing that a lot of people don't realize: unless you're being paid a retainer to be exclusive to a community, it's not right to ask a talent to be exclusive to that community, unless they are going to give you a retainer, and they'll be like, hey, listen, uh, you can't do the other game, which is a direct competitor of ours,
Okay.
but we will make it worth your while. So amount of business that you might lose out on that will compensate. Will
Okay.
compensate for that. So it just comes down to the fact that, are they going to go above and beyond and pay your retainer? It's not even above and beyond. I mean, you're losing out on potential business, right?
Yeah.
And trust
Exactly.
me, I've done practically every game that has existed in this country, by far, except for Dota 2, because I really don't understand Dota 2, but I was a desk host for it. So, which is, again, it's so funny. I've been very honest about not understanding MOBA, but I've still managed to do it somehow with my friends' friends' help while we were doing those events. But yeah, you can't ask a talent to be exclusive unless you're being put on a retainer. There's no way.
It's for our viewers, it's more likely like you sign contract deals with let's say streaming platforms, right? You'll stay exclusive to Twitch, you'll stay exclusive to YouTube. That's how it kind of works. But then don't really have that thing in a country. Sometimes they might shadow ban you.
So that's where leverage comes in, right? So here's the thing: if you don't have any leverage in the discussion, you will get screwed over.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
there's no right or wrong. It's just business.
Exactly.
Let's make this very clear. There's no moral stance in this. It's pure business. So if you have the leverage, you can of course strong arm the opposite party and tell them, hey, no, this is what I want. But if you don't have any leverage, and what's our leverage as talent?
Exactly.
Numbers, social media. I know of events which have just looked at numbers and been like, you know what, I want this person because they have like 1 million followers on Instagram, which is fine. It's business at the end of the day because that's how you make your money. I don't have 1 million followers. I only have 20,000 followers, but I know that whatever
Only
I'm going to
20,000.
do, just only 20,000. Yeah, that's it. Listen, we've seen people who have millions and millions. So point being, if you don't have leverage, yeah, you won't get a good deal. So there's no moral stance on this. It's pure business at the end of the day.
Keeping this aside, like just on the basis of skill, like how taxing was it to kind of transition from CSGO and English commentary to now Free Fire and Hindi commentary, because those are completely two different worlds. How taxing was it to kind of learn a new game? I don't know how your Hindi was initially, but now you're pretty fluent at it. So like, how did you just get about it?
Oh, this is funny. This is not an answer that anybody would expect. I did not have to work hard at all. It's just one day I got a call for an event. I still remember 2019. This was December, if I'm not mistaken. FreeFire India Today League, FFITL, the very first event, the very first LAN that happened, as far as I know. Correct me if I'm wrong. I got a call from NEO in the country, and they're like, "Hey man, we would like you." So I was commentating in English in that event, and they're like, "Hey man, we'd like your services for this." And I was very honest with them. Listen, man, I've not played this game, and the event is in a week. And I'm not sure if I would be the right choice because I would not be able to do justice to it. And they're like, listen, man, you have a week, you can learn the game. Just, come on board and we'll see how that goes. And I went in, I did Free Fire, enjoyed it. The reason why I did not have to work hard, except for learning the mechanics and, what are the intricacies of the game with regards to characters and their abilities and whatnot, right? It wasn't difficult because once you learn a game like Counter-Strike, right, there are certain fundamentals. If you've played it to a certain extent, and at a certain level, when you've played it competitively, I'm not saying I was the best player in the country, no, but I did compete in CSGO, and we did pretty well.
You were beyond a certain threshold.
Yeah, you are beyond a certain threshold, right? So you understand a lot of fundamentals, and you can just take them and go to any other game and start applying them there. Because look, concepts like trade fragging or let's say what rotations might be like, how to create space and whatnot, more or less, sure, they do differ game to game. I'm not saying they're the exact same, but you have a basic idea of what it is like to play a tactical shooter, and then you can go on and apply that to a new game as well. But the best part is when I started off, there was no meta, so there was no bar to be compared to. Now it's difficult for a lot of people to come in and start doing it, because there have been people who've been doing this for a couple of years, and that's, you will be compared to it. Dude, when I started casting, I was utter garbage. I was so bad. If I started right now, I would not get a gig, trust me. The only reason why I was able to sustain myself is because I had the first movers advantage. That's literally it. Trust me, 6 years ago, there are still VODs on Twitch. I'm sure I can send you the links. Utter shit, but hey, I was one of the very few people in the country who understood the game and was at least confident enough to go out there and commentate. So
exactly. I mean, very good point. This was actually one of my questions as well. Like initially when you started, you didn't really have a benchmark to match upon, but right now you do so. So like for a young caster who probably looks up to a MambaSr or probably a Cribs, would have to work way too hard right at the start to just acquire that experience. So like, what can be your suggestions to start off with like
Practice, literally just practice. Listen, one thing I really like about the esports industry is you don't need a certificate from anybody. You
Mhm.
really do not need anybody's approval to start doing what you want to do. You want to become a caster, just download a demo in CS:GO. Maybe if you want to cast Free Fire, open up a tournament, start commentating, record yourself for 30 minutes, go through the ward, and see how the top talent in that game is doing. Compare it, not exactly compare it. Obviously, everybody has their own style, but try and learn from other people who've been doing it for a while, and just keep practicing, do rinse and repeat, and keep put yourself out there. There's social media, there's YouTube. Make your words, make a show reel, and then put it out there. And someday somebody will get noticed. And there are, dude, I know of casters without naming them, some of my very good friends
yeah.
who literally got noticed off a YouTube stream. They were streaming, they were very enthusiastic, and the next thing you know, they're casting in some of the biggest tournaments in the country. So it's listen, it's when I say it's very easy, I mean, if you're diligent enough and if you have that discipline to work hard enough, you will find an opportunity. That's not a problem at all. Trust me, the opportunities are endless, and we've not even hit like the 50% threshold of what we can actually achieve.
In terms of opportunities, like when there are new opportunities coming in, when there are more people coming in, what happens to the existing talents now? A market kind of gets more saturated, you have more people competing for the same job. How does existing talent, how does the MambaSr maintains his position, maintains his superiority over the other casters?
Oh, this is a tricky one, and this is actually a very good question as well, right? So this is something I've been noticing in the last year and a half, especially since the pandemic hit, right? Now this is a discussion which has been going on with caster rates and talent rates, especially because
Mm,
we can talk about this because
yeah,
we are both casters, right?
100%.
Now, here's the thing: we've actually talked about this on a podcast that a friend of mine and I run as well, where we've actually put out numbers where we've talked about how much a caster used to get paid 5 years ago, how much do they get paid right now. Sure, the new people coming in, industry is going to change. There's going to be more competition. There's going to be a lot of undercutting going on as well. But sometimes I look at the amount of money they get paid, and I feel like they're being exploited. They should not be getting paid that much to cast. I'm not saying everybody who starts off is immediately going to get paid. No, you will have to work for free at some point in your life when you're starting off. But you need that experience, and once you get to a certain point, you just start to, you know, as a beginner, right? You have to work your way in, try and make sure you don't get exploited. Number two is talk to people around you. But again, going back to your question, right, the precise question, how does somebody who's been around for a while maintain their position in the market? Up your game, just be better than everybody else. And it could literally be anything: the way you work, the way you cast, your reliability as a talent. The reason why I'm very happy in Surat right now, and I've said this a million times probably at this point, um, and the reason I keep getting all these gigs, one of the reasons why I keep getting all these home gigs is because I feel like I'm reliable, and I know this because I have multiple pieces, I have multiple internet connections, I have multiple power backups. There's not been one time in the last 1 year and a half, Salty, if we've been working together,
Yeah,
where I've had to drop a text in the group and be like, "Hey man, my PC is not working, or my internet's down, or I don't have power." Now, all these things matter at the end of the day. So I
exactly.
know new casters will come in. They might be better casters than me. They might not be better casters than me. It's very subjective. You can't compare a caster to the other, number one. But what I can do is, I've been fortunate enough to be around for a while. I've been able to, build my setup in a while. So I can use those things and up my game.
Mm,
So I'll give you an example. I have a soundproof window, and I got a soundproof window installed like 8 months ago in my studio. It's like a sandwich class. I know there are going to be festivals in the country, and I know a lot of people are going to struggle with it. A
yeah.
lot of casters are also going to struggle with it, but I'm not worried about it. I literally have a soundproof window, so you could be blasting music niche in the garden, but it wouldn't matter to me. So that's how you up your game and stay relevant.
Exactly, exactly. Again, one very important thing which I kind of noticed on in what you said was that there is like at some point you have to kind of work for free, right? And I feel like it's a direct con for not needing a certificate of validation. You don't need a certificate of validation in this. The only certificate of validation is your skill. To display that
Yeah.
skill, you need exposure, and for that exposure, you might have to work for free. And I feel like yeah,
By the way, I mean, let me expand on this. When I say work for free, this is strictly for people who are beginning and strictly for
exactly.
community tournaments. You can't be in my position. I can't walk up to an EO right now who's doing an event and be like, "Hey man, I really want to do this event, but I'll do it for free." It's not morally correct in my opinion, because listen, I'm already established enough to get gigs for myself. But what I'm doing right now is cock blocking everybody else who wants to try and
Exactly.
get that opportunity. Somebody who's new, and I've seen this happen as well. I've seen this happen from experienced casters, which again is a personal choice. But I feel like if you're really going to do it for free, then there should be a very good reason for it. I remember I've done a couple of events pro bono. I did a PUBG Mobile event back in 2018, I think 19. I don't remember. Ahmedabad, there was this event happening. PUBG Mobile airdrop 1.0, 2.0, something like that. And he was a friend of mine. It was a new company that he was trying to start, and he was like, "Hey man, can you help me?" I was like, "What's your budget?" And he was like, "Hey man, I know I don't have the budget for you. So instead of cutting down on my rates, I told him, listen, I'll come in, just take care of my travel and stay, and I'll work the event pro bono." He really wanted to work with me, and I told him, "Do you have anybody around who would like an option?" He was like, "No, there's nobody around." So even right now, so there's something called Twitch TV, Twitch India Conquerors Athena is happening, which is an all-female Valorant league, right?
Yeah.
And I was contacted by the organizer, who also happens to be a friend of mine, and we had a conversation about my services for them. And I'm pretty sure I would have done, like, listen, here's the thing, right? It's a all female tournament, and as look, I'm all it's the goal of that tournament is to create a safe space for women who can come in and compete.
Yeah.
And it's about empowering women in esports and gaming in general. I can't go in and be like, "Hey man, you know what, I'm going to do a tournament." I'm a dude, number one. Number two, it's a community tournament. So you should rather have somebody from the community do it, because I don't need that opportunity right now. Sure, I'll be there if something goes wrong. If somebody can't make it, I'll be more than happy to fill up a spot and make sure the show goes smooth. But yeah, I feel like I'd rather take a step back and just let somebody from the community take a chance and maybe get that opportunity. And we're seeing that we have an observer who's going to be observing over there. We have two casters and a desk host who've not, I don't know how long they've been doing it for, but I've not seen them around doing events. But it's just great. Like, listen, it doesn't matter if you enjoy the end product or not, but the fact that it's happening and you have
Is
that opportunity is massive in itself.
exactly. Speaking of like end product, I've always tried to figure out like what is it that we as casters sell? Is it our skill? Is it our commentary? Is it our personality? Is it just making the stream more enjoyable? So like, what do you think, what factors makes the end product for the organizer or the publisher more satisfying? Because you and I, we both know how much money we have kind of spent to make this small box more appealing, right? How much time we have spent to kind of get to a particular threshold when it comes to commentary. But this is still a question that still rings in my head, like what actually sells?
ROI, dude. At the end of the day, look, it's a funny answer, I know. So there will be events where organizers would rather not have the like they. Okay, look, it's a tricky answer. Okay, there are people in the industry who do value quality over just sheer numbers, but at the same time, they also have to be realistic about getting the return on their investment.
Exactly.
So what sells is a tricky question in itself, is because sure, you have to be at a certain level to even be present in front of the camera.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if I'm farting on camera and the audience enjoys it, doesn't matter, bro. There are numbers. There's like 1 million people watching me fart. As long as they're enjoying it, it really comes down to what the preference of the audience is and what your personality is, and do you guys match? That's practically the most how do I say this? That's probably the closest answer I can give you. Not even closer, but that's the most sane answer I can give you, because there's really no answer to it. It's just, do you as a caster and your personality go well with the audience that's watching it? That's it.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. But again, for you, it's kind of been like changing, right? Because you initially started with the Battle Royale audience. Now you are with the Free Fire audience, and different people have looked up to you at some point. A portion of it, a small subset of it, would go on to Instagram and follow you as well. Again, just like you mentioned, numbers are a big part of what casters present on camera, or what value casters add to the broadcast. But suppose like for a majority of the tier 1 casters that we have right now, if we kind of take away their following, right? If we take away from the people that who follow and support them, uh, what sort of value would you think like they would be able to add to a cast? Like, do you think like the Indian market, the Indian audience actually values what I would call it, the technicality of a cast, or the wordplay, or stuff that we care about, but normal people don't give a shit about it? Do you think Indian audience actually values that?
I'll be brutally honest, they don't. Audience might, but okay. So look, it's not a black and white answer. There are a lot of new people who've been just brought into esports in the last year and a half, and they've not seen the bar, right?
Yeah.
So for them, it's still new. So I would not blame anybody to not value because they're not valuing something. But okay, sorry. This is something that you might not like. Okay, but I'll ask you a brutally honest question.
Yeah.
Okay, and you can keep this in the podcast. You can't. If you don't want to keep it, you don't keep
Sure,
it.
sure.
Right? We're talking about technicality of the game, and we're talking about knowledge and the intricacies of the game. You've played Valorant. You cast Valorant. You cast some of the biggest events in the country. What's your rank?
Silver 2.
Have you played competitive Valorant?
Not yet.
That's the answer. I mean, look, but you're still doing it, right? And I'm not saying you're doing a bad job at it, but I'm just saying that it doesn't factor in. Dude, my team that I was playing for in 2020 was one of the top 4 teams in the country.
Yeah, I know.
Battlefield 4, where my team was the best team in the country. I've been Immortal too. I understand the game to an extent where I can see why there's a random smoke popping off, or I can understand why there's this footstep being made, or why somebody's randomly shooting at a wall. I can see those intricacies. And there's always going to be a difference between somebody who's a silver 2 and somebody who's played competitive.
Yeah.
But you don't see me do Valorant events, but you do them. And that's the answer. That's practically the answer.
Again, like
it's brutally honest, and
exactly.
Look, man,
I mean,
but it is what it is. It's the market.
Exactly. But again, like if I would kind of justify my position, I kind of fill in like the Harsha Bhogle role, right? I'm not somebody who is gonna talk about the intricacies of the game. I'm not somebody who is gonna talk about the technicalities of why the players are doing this, or judge their performances. I kind of speak from what I would call it. From an emotional standpoint, let's say there's a 1v5 situation going on, and what is a player feeling? And to convey those emotions, I feel like sure, skill would be definitely good, but there would be moments where you always don't need the skill to kind of convey that information that you humanly feel.
Yeah, no, fair. I'm not saying you don't have the skill as a caster. Absolutely you do. Otherwise, you'd not be sitting here doing this podcast, right? But the point being, so there used to be hard roles, right, back in the day when I started. There was something called the play-by-play caster.
Yeah.
There was something called the color caster. The play-by-play caster, if it did not really understand the game to an extent, was still okay. That's a play-by-play caster. He's going to narrate what's happening on the screen. The color caster is the one who's going to dissect the game. But in my honest opinion, the industry's changed from that point on. You can't have. I mean, sure, if you have a color caster and you have like a play-by-play caster, it's a good pair. It's working out well. Sure, be my guest, but I feel like you do need, and this is my opinion again, and this is as blunt as I can be, you need to understand the game to a certain level to be able to commentate on it. Otherwise, I've seen events where I've seen people who've talked about, okay, Valorant, for example, right? The jet smoke is called a cloudburst, right? I've literally seen an event, which is one of the nicer events in the country, by the way, where the caster was like, oh, the jet's using the C ability. And there were like 2,000 people watching them. So the point I'm trying to make is you need a certain level of skill and understanding of the game to, commentate. If you don't know why in the world is that Cypher putting his trap over there, you're going to start questioning it. But if you don't understand the game, you won't be able to explain it.
Exactly.
And that's your job. You're not supposed to explain it to the audience, but you're supposed to build a narrative. You're supposed to build a story around what's happening. And that's why I feel like, look, man, you don't have to be the best player in the country. You don't even have to be like above average, but you need to understand the game to a certain extent to be able to, commentate. And again, I'll tell you what, I've seen examples where people understand the game really, really well, but they're not good at playing the game themselves. Okay. But those are exceptions. That's not the rule.
Mamba, who is he pointing at?
Fet, not you. But
ठीक है. Just kidding. Go on.
Yeah, no, Fet. So Fet is one of those guys. I've worked with him in the past. He understands the game to a great degree. But he was a silver himself. He never really played, but he did understand the game. But the problem, I'll tell you what the problem with that as well is, right? Imagine you're a silver in Valorant and you're casting a game where there are Radiants playing, right? And you're going to point something out. And like, hey, man, no, this was the wrong player. Maybe, you're not even giving a judgment, but like, you're trying to build a narrative where you're questioning the play that was made. The problem is going to be the players are going to be like, who the is this guy?
Is this exactly?
Are you to question this play? You don't even understand what in the world was going on over there. And that's one more problem, because unless you've been in the waters yourself, you can't question the sharks. You can't.
You absolutely can't. I mean, that is why I kind of stay away from this. I'm like the good guy in commentary. I never question. You've done it. It's very good. It's very good, man. You've fantastic play, but it just didn't work out.
That's what I'm saying. This is the exact point I'm trying to make. You can't build a narrative around questioning what a team did because you simply do not have that skill set in the game. And I'm not talking about you specifically. I'm talking about a person in general who's not played any specific game. Right? That's what I'm trying to say.
Exactly. Again, kind of moving away from Valorant, and again, out of these 6 years, Mama, that you have casted, very, very long time, different games, different languages, do you think you've hit 2 points, your peak and rock bottom throughout this?
Rock bottom was definitely when I started. Peak, I'm not even close, trust me. I'm not even close. I'll be honest. There's something I know for a fact is, so, peak would be when you do the most premier of the most premier events. Okay. And that's the beginning of your peak. So imagine if I ended up on the English desk of the FreeFire World Series, the global English desk, right? To give you context. Or maybe a CSGO major, or, the best tournament, the biggest tournament, like for example, it's PUBG Mobile World League, right? You end up on the global broadcast and you do a good job there and the fans like you. That's the beginning of your peak. And after you can start questioning your peak, but I'm not even close right now. Not even close.
And like, what about your rock bottom? Like, how was it like, and how did you deal with it?
This practice would improve. Listen, man, nobody's going to walk up to you and coddle you and be like, hey, Mamba, it's okay. You're not doing a good job today. You had a bad broadcast. Everybody has bad broadcast days, okay? But you can't expect people to walk up to you, to coddle you and be like, hey, man, no, it's okay. You take it to the chin and you move on. You take the L and you move on. That's the only way forward. You really can't expect somebody to be nice to you.
Bad broadcast
you have to handle it yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I've had tons of bad broadcast days. I've had days where I don't really want to name him, but he's been mentoring me for a while. He was like, "You did a good job."
I know.
And
I
right,
know what
and
you're talking about.
yeah, right. And like, and I'm like, I kind of know that. I just don't want to listen to this broadcast. But you're like, no, you'll have to sit down with me. You'll have to listen to that entire broadcast, because probably 2,500 people watched this live and they had to listen to this and they had to bear with you. So it's like, sure, I've had my rock bottom moments, but not necessarily that, Mama. I kind of feel like, not from a skill point of view, but as a freelance caster, there might be days.
Shit, yeah.
Right. There might be days where you're not casting for a very long period of time.
This
right.
month, dude, February, except like 4 broadcast days, there's nothing happening.
Exactly.
But again, this is the off season. But that's a trade-off, right? As a freelancer, you have the freedom. Okay, you have all the freedom in the world to do whatever you want, but you don't have security. So if you're talking about that, dude, oh, absolutely. I was about to quit esports in 2019. I ordered my GMAT books to try and, get a good score, leave India, go to maybe try and get into an Ivy League college or whatever. And of course, it's not easy to go to an Ivy League college, but the fact that I was about to quit esports is because I just did not see myself, in a position where I could sustain that. But sometimes, you just get a call randomly and you're like, hey, man, you know what? There's an event coming up. And I'll tell you how close I was to quitting esports. There was this event, I was in Bangalore, and after that, I had nothing coming up. And I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'll just prepare for GMAT or whatever. But I was told, hey, man, there's an event happening. And we need it tomorrow because it's been an emergency. And that was the most amount of money I made that year in that 1 week period. I was getting paid my land rates for an entire week. That's like half a year's salary for me at that point.
Yeah.
Right. Now, of course, it's not comparable, but over there it was very, very different. So I'm like, oh, dude, you know what? I'll
Stay.
just do it.
Let's
Yeah,
just
let's just
stay.
stay. But there were like multiple factors as well. I was still yet to complete my degree at that point because I had 2 papers remaining, and I was like, screw this. I don't want to be a part of this because I knew the education that I had was a good college and whatnot, but it did not mean. But I'm not going to endorse this. I'm not going to tell you screw studies. Don't do it. Trust me. Education is probably the single most important thing you'll do in your life because if this doesn't work out, at least you'll have a backup option.
Yeah. How important is it though, like to have a backup option?
Oh, very, dude. Oh, okay. This might take like 5 minutes for me to answer this.
Yeah,
Right?
sure. Go ahead.
Um. So the way I can explain this, right, is you can either put everything you have in one thing and give and work at like 140% of your capacity only in one thing and one thing only to try and become hyper successful in that niche, and things might work out. If it does, you'll be successful, you will establish yourself, sure, but if that does not work out, everything in your life will come falling down. Now, the second thing is you might operate at an 80%, but if, at 5 things in your life, right? So you might have a day job where you're working at an MNC or whatever. You might have a day job at, whenever you have free time, you're still trying to, make your mark into esports as a commentator, as a player, as whatever, right? But you're operating at 80%. You're not even operating at 100%. The good thing about that is if one of the things goes down, imagine you lose your esports career, you still have your day job to fall back
Yeah.
onto. You still have a social life to fall back onto. You have people around you. The question is, what is the trade-off? What are the consequences you're willing to pay? When what I did was just dive head first, took a leap of faith. If this did not work out, I was okay with the consequences. I would have probably been depressed if it didn't work out. But I took the risk because I was privileged enough to take the risk because I knew that I didn't have to worry about money. If I was unemployed for 2 years, my parents would take care of me, and I didn't have to worry about that aspect also. And that's very important. I'm not going to sit here and sell you dreams and be like, oh no, if I pulled it off, you can too. Sure, you can if you're good enough, but if you don't, then everything's going to come falling down. So it's important to understand the consequences of your action more than anything else. Like, look, education and everything is important, sure, because that gives you this platform to not in platform. It gives you this base,
The safety net.
intellect. Not even safety net. It makes you capable intellectually. Okay. Capable enough. Not every literate person is going to be educated. There's a difference between literacy and education. But the point I'm trying to make is, if you go through a certain process, you will have a basic understanding of how the world works around you. But apart from that, dude, it really comes down to what is the price that you're willing to pay in order to succeed. Are you okay with things not working out and everything in your life coming to a stop? Then if yes, then dive head first. If you're not, then you better have a backup option.
Very debatable thing actually, because I think like it would be a completely separate podcast if we start debating on whether one should actually dive head first or actually have a backup plan, because a lot of successful people believe that backup plans are the reason why you might not be able to succeed in your primary goal. Diving head first, giving you 120%, 140%.
Stop quoting Arnold Schwarzenegger, please.
No, it's not just.
I've seen this speech a million times. Just don't.
I mean,
listen, all of this sounds nice in theory. Trust me, all of this sounds really, really nice in theory. But here's again, I'm not saying don't do that. I'm not saying don't have you need to have a backup option. You don't want to have a backup option? Be my guest, okay? All I'm saying is be willing to pay the price if it doesn't work out. That's don't crib about life and don't crib about why me, oh god, this is not working off me. It's just that be willing to face the consequences of whatever you choose to do.
Exactly. But all right, so we've talked about education as a backup option, but let's say now you are a caster, right? You are an established caster. You are casting for, let's say, a particular publisher. You're getting events every month or so. But do you still think you need to do other things? Let's say, for example, you have your streaming thing, right? You have your content thing. Some might even, for example, someone like Crips maybe working at a media agency writing articles about esports. So do you think it's important to actually do that as a caster, especially when you've established yourself?
Okay, this is debatable. This is very tricky again. There's no right or wrong. It's not binary. It's a very big gray area. I can give you examples. Let's Blair, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
The oldest CS:GO caster in the country. He's done, I think, one or two majors. I don't know exactly, but he's done a major very recently.
Yeah.
One of the best casters in the world, top of the line. Everybody knows who he is. Has 2,000 followers on Instagram, dude. Still does majors. The biggest and the most premier Counter Strike tournament in the world. So, and then we have, let's say, somebody like Anora, who's been a part of the broadcast on the Hindi desk with FreeFire World Series, with 1.9 million live concurrent viewers, is sitting right next to me. He has 1 million subscribers on YouTube. I have 100,000. Here's the thing. It might help you, sure, but it can only take you so far. That's the thing. It really comes down to, listen, just sheer numbers are not going to get you to the most premier stage unless you have something like 100 million or something like that, and you can pull in a viewership of 5 million just by tweeting out, hey man, I'm going to go to this event and I'm going to be casting here, and suddenly 5 million people are watching you. In that case, everybody's going to hire you. But unless you have that, that's only going to take you so far.
True. Absolutely true. All right. One question for the youngsters. All right. For ones who just be willing to start out. So, I've had this question myself as well, and I've asked this to a couple of people. Should one scout for opportunities before starting out casting, let's say, this particular game as a vacancy in this particular language, or should you pick one niche and become an absolute powerhouse in that? There might be competition your way, but you're willing to take that risk to just brute force the competition, or do you want to scout opportunities first and then maybe make your mark, and after you've made your mark, you probably switch to somewhere you were loved?
Again, like these are questions. The answers can't be binary in this.
Okay.
Something might work out for somebody, something might not work out for somebody. So it really just comes down to, what do you want to do?
Okay.
Are you looking at it very objectively, like 100%? There's no passion involved in it, then just choose whatever game has an opportunity and start casting it.
Makes
But
sense.
if you
I
game
think that
which
is
you
the
don't-
answer. I think that is the best answer that you probably could have given.
yeah, so if you've been playing a game, you enjoy playing that game, then just stick to it, dude.
All right. A very important question. You've been vocal about the mental health problems that comes with working in this industry, the social life and all. So, I mean, the months where we are working, let's say 4 or 5 days a week, where there are several different tournaments that you're casting simultaneously, those are very hectic. You barely get holidays because one day you get one break, suddenly there's a call that you have to join a dry run, or that you have to do this check, that check. So obviously that thing is there. How do you deal with that, first of all? Like, especially since you've done it for a very long while. I've done it for a year. I know, like, I've got the power in my tank to just tank through this situation, but doing it for several years and years.
Here's the thing, right? I don't give a who you are. If you can power through days, you can stay up for 36 hours. Okay. Dude, I don't listen, even if you're God walking on the face of the planet, right, you will get burnt out after
Exactly.
a certain point.
100%.
It's not sustainable to be operating at 150% all the time. You will need breaks. The only way you can manage all of this is to be smart enough to take breaks whenever they're possible. I'll give an example. Last year, I think it was May, June, July. Yeah, May, June, July. I had 15 events in 3 months. 15.
1-5.
1-5. Some were like a day long, like 1 day event, 2 day events, but in total, I had 15 events. I had to turn down events and tell them, listen, man, it's not possible. I will not be able to do justice to it. And that event which I turned down was, I think it was 11 or 12 days. It was a Valorant event. It's going to pay me a lot of money. No, sorry. No, it was not 11. It was 7 or 8 days. Something, basically more than a week, right? And it was going to pay me a lot of money, but I knew if I did that, I would break. I'd collapse like a deck of cards. So at some point you have to realize, listen, you can only push your body so far, and you have to take breaks. If you don't take breaks, if you don't go out, you need fresh air and sunlight. Okay, but basically plants with emotions. So to do the bare minimum, keep yourself in shape. Salty has been working out. I've been working out on and off. Eat right. Get enough sleep, which again we're all guilty of not getting. I remember December 2020, I was getting 4.5 hours of sleep on an average for a week straight. Not fun. But yeah, you gotta maintain work-life balance. As a matter of fact, there was an article on Life Mint. I've not read it yet. My brother sent it to me, but it's been a while since this article came out, and the article was pretty much this: a career in gaming does not have to end in burnout. But I've not read it yet, so I can't speak for the quality of the article. But yeah, you just have to be smart about your breaks. That's
Yeah,
it.
and it's
And
not just players, or it's not just people who are working or maybe actively taking part. It's the production guys as well. It's the casters as well. It's everybody who is working in the back end as well. The burnout situation is definitely real. But on a concluding note, Mamba, what's your future like? Very short future. I'm not going to talk about 10-year plans or 5-year plans. What are you looking forward to this year?
second cup of coffee for the day, dude.
By the way, I've started like Mamba has induced a lot of nice changes in me personally as well, professionally. But one thing is, I've also turned towards coffee, like turning to like 2 glasses, 2 cups a day.
It's
But
not good,
again,
by
Mama
the
might
way.
call me a
I stick to
degenerate because I'm more of a Nescafe person. I want convenience. I don't want to like scout for.
let's do this. Let's just delete this entire podcast. I'm not talking to you. Okay, I'm not an elitist. I'm just pulling his leg, but yeah, no. What am I looking forward to this year? I actually got back to creating content. I hope I can create some meaningful content and people like it, because I know there is definitely a disconnect between what kind of content I like to make and what kind of content is being consumed in the country.
Yeah.
But now I have to look at it very objectively. Okay, I've been creating content for 13 years. But my first ever video on YouTube was in 2009.
Mm-hmm.
That's more time than a lot of our viewers, by the way. And I've seen the entire space evolve right in front of my eyes. Now, the question over here is, do I still think of it as a passion project? Do I think of it as a job? Do I
Okay.
think of it as a business to run? That's something I'm still coming to terms with. And hopefully, the disconnect between the kind of content I make and the content that's being consumed, the distance between the two sort of reduces, so I can still look at it as a passion project. But otherwise, I'll have to look at it objectively and start making content which is going to get consumed, which I won't be a fan of. But that's just the harsh reality of this industry. It is what it is.
It is what
So
it is.
let me turn the tables
Asha, let's
around
talk
and
about it.
ask
Let's
you a
talk about it.
question, right?
Yeah.
What do you think about the cancel culture?
Okay. I feel like that's something which is probably there in the. That's probably the biggest nightmare for every single creator out there, for every single caster,
Absolutely.
for every single person who kind of dedicates or makes a living out of his image out in public.
Yeah.
He has to be scared of cancel culture because it's the public who is making him money, and the public one day might decide collectively that, all right, this guy is not worth our time, this guy is not worth our attention, and suddenly you don't have a job, you don't have a living, and that's basically it.
So there's this guy called John Ronson, right?
Okay.
Yeah, John Ronson, who's done a TED Talk, who's published a book as well. I think it's called So You've Been Publicly Shamed. And the funny thing is, you don't even have to be a public figure to be cancelled.
Mm-hmm.
You really don't. There have been people who just, obviously, distasteful jokes. I'm not commenting on whether that was right or wrong. A lot of distasteful things were said, but it doesn't matter if you're a public figure or not. If you do something which the mob does not agree with, you will get cancelled. And here's the thing, that I'm pretty sure I'm going to face flag for this, but I'm going to try and keep it as polite as possible. But democratization of justice is probably the stupidest idea anybody can have.
Okay.
Trust me on this. Look,
Again,
a lot of people have different moral values. A lot of people have different moral, value hierarchy. A lot of people agree with certain things. A lot of people don't agree with certain things. That's always going to be there because we're only humans, right? We will agree with certain things. We might not agree with certain things. Some things might be on the line of being appropriate and inappropriate. Some things might be absolutely distasteful. But the question is, where do you draw the line? Tomorrow, if I wake up and if I say that, hey man, no, Saltxy said something about khakras and I happen to be a Gujarati, I don't like it, cancel Saltxy. Is that valid enough? Because you hurt my feelings.
yeah.
I don't like you. But the question is that valid enough? And I know, listen, I'm giving a very simplified example. There have been instances where people who were legally not guilty but of doing something wrong, but morally, clearly they were on the dark side, right?
Yeah.
And we might not agree with it, but the problem with this is, where do you draw the line? Where precisely do you draw the line?
And
That's
who
the
draws the line?
Yeah, who draws the line as well? In a court, there's a judge sitting, there's a jury sitting who is going to decide what's right and what's not wrong, what's not right. It's been clearly defined in the constitution or in the book of law or whatever that's called. I'm very bad at it. But the point being, moral lines are very it's a gray zone. Honestly, you could agree with certain things, you might not agree with certain things, but attacking people because they happen to have a different opinion, just because they have a different opinion. I'm not talking about opinions about, obviously, certain things like racism and whatnot. Obviously, those are very serious things, right?
Yeah.
And here's the thing: you can't you can not take the other person's opinion. You might not agree with them, or they might have even hurt your feelings, but stealing the livelihood because of the fact that they don't agree with you, or maybe you don't like their opinion, is I don't agree with it. Bottom line being,
Exactly.
democratization is probably the stupidest idea that anybody could have. It's so I'll tell you, this is mob justice, but in a more sophisticated manner.
In a more sophisticated manner.
Imagine a mob, next day you're walking on the streets, right, and you've said something that 200 people don't agree with, and they walk up to you and they start shouting at you like, "Hey man, no, this is not cool." Maybe they beat you up. That's mob justice. But that's that version. And here's the funny thing, right? I'll tell you what: being physically violent is not fun. It's not good. But dude, you're literally stealing somebody's livelihood away because they don't agree with you. Doesn't make sense to me. And I know I'm going to face a lot of flag. I probably shouldn't even have talked about it, but while it's a PR nightmare, it is something that people need to come out and talk about, because it's here. This is what I feel, right? As somebody who is out there, and there are maybe 5 people who are going to listen to me and maybe think about this. I feel like it's my moral obligation to at least say the things that I believe in, or maybe things which I believe are right. And sure, there are going to be people who are probably going to be like, Mama's an idiot. He shouldn't have talked about cancel culture, or maybe, is this inviting more flack or whatever.
Not really.
Point being, no, there will be people. Trust me, there will be people. And it is a very sensitive topic, but it's something that I definitely do not like and I do not agree with. There's this guy called Tim Urban. He tweeted out something today itself, I believe. No, February 8th. And he's talking about pluralistic ignorance, a term that's used by psychologists. And it's a nice little thread. I'll give you the link if you want to put it down in the description. And that is basically cancel culture in a nutshell, which is a very good explanation of what we think, but we can't put into words because we're not qualified enough, number one, to do that. But obviously, as a social issue, we can talk about the entire idea of it and what we feel about it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, sure. I mean, as an individual, I'm not really sure if cancel culture is going to hit me as hard as I would probably if I were supposed to say something wrong in an esports broadcast, right? And
I've seen people get cancelled because of certain remarks they've made.
Exactly right, and I've seen that too, and the consequences were tragic. As far as I know, they probably yet to find their first event after that as well. So, I mean, as a job that we do, which is supposed to be speaking to an audience live, anything can come out of your mouth. And especially when we are basing our entire conversation on esports, I feel like cancel culture in esports is very much there. You don't have an opportunity to cut it out later on.
Here's the thing, right? Things which are black and white, right? Day and night, binary. You talk about something that's completely okay and something that's completely not okay. Again, going back to the same thing, like racism is absolutely not okay. In any circumstance, it's not okay. So all of these things you get cancelled for, I get it. Fair enough.
Makes sense.
Cancel people on that. I don't give a if somebody's being racist. Like they don't deserve to be out there. They should face the harshest consequences. Sure, but the biggest problem is that gray zone that lies between 0 and 1.
Who decides on that? Nobody.
Who decides on that? There's no way to decide what are the rules of the game over there, and that's the problem, because it sort of takes away from a free public discourse. You can't have a conversation about certain issues without getting cancelled. And I remember I was being interviewed by this page called Humans of Surat, and there was a question: what's your biggest nightmare? At that point, my biggest nightmare was being cancelled. And I know I didn't say anything wrong, but it's still something that keeps lingering around in my head on a daily basis. But I think I've come to a point where I'm like, what, dude, people are going to think what they want to think. I'll try and be as honest as possible, and I'll try and be as fair as possible with my words. But if it's going to happen eventually, it'll happen eventually.
Exactly, and it's not just this interview as well. I mean, you've talked about this even before. Like generally, what we all arena casters, we've got some sort of time before we can connect to each other and all. And you've been talking about this particular thing one such day about you always fear saying something wrong on a stream. Maybe some fine day you
No, I
wake
don't
up.
fear saying something wrong on the stream. No, that's not my concern. My concern is maybe I have an opinion about something,
Okay,
and someday maybe 20 people might not agree with it, and that's when they start bullying my employer into saying, "Hey, man, you know what? We don't agree with this. You shouldn't hire Mamba." That's the
exactly.
problem we're talking about.
Exactly. And what do publishers do at that point? I mean, they've got to run a business, they've got to run a show. They
Like, not
don't.
even just publishers, like any business owner, right?
Any business owner,
Let's not
exactly.
limit it to just publishers. The point is, the mob will bully your employer, and your employer will eventually give in because they have to run a business, which I respect. I'm not saying anything against it, but it's just the harsh reality of the world that we live in. We don't live in a utopian world. The sun doesn't shine on my ass every morning. It does not. The world is not all rainbows and sunshine. We have uh, in our society, we have good things, we have bad things. There are terrible things that happen, and there are definitely things that we don't agree with. But it is what it is. You can talk about it, sure, you can crib about it, but is that going to change something? So it's something we'll find out with the public discourse, but that is not allowed because hey, you talk about something that I don't like, I'm going to cancel you.
Yeah. Like, even before it's an argument, you're cancelled.
Yeah.
And that's sad. That is certainly sad.
Look, there will be people who are going to disagree with you. Bottom line is there will be people who will disagree with you. There are no.
You can't satisfy the entire population all by yourself. 100%.
Satisfy. That's not the right word to use, but okay.
Yeah. Sure. Slip of tongue.
See, that's why this is exactly what we're talking about. Salty is probably going to have a slip of tongue someday when he's casting, and the next thing I know,
Exactly.
Salty was somebody I knew,
Exactly.
not somebody I know, because I will cut you off like a rotten arm.
Friendship
like,
dekh
full of
rahe ho?
gangrene. I'll be like, I don't know who Salty is, bro. I don't know.
We started the podcast with he's a very good friend of mine, and now I'm gonna cut you off, bro. But
Look, man, I gotta put food on my table. Unless you're gonna come and pay my bills and put food on my table, be my guest. I'll coddle you, but unless you're doing that, I'm sorry. Bye bye. That's all I'm gonna tell you.
yeah, sure. I guess
And I
don't
expect
mind.
nothing. I expect nothing less from you as well, because at the end of the day, it is about surviving yourself. Look, this is one of my favorite quotes that I go to. Right? It's a bit of an extreme, but I don't remember where I read this, but the quote is something like this: there are roughly 9 meals between mankind or humankind and anarchy. So to explain this, right? Imagine you're a parent, you have children,
Yeah.
and there's a massive famine going on.
Okay.
There's no food to be found. One day you don't eat, second day you don't eat, third day you've not eaten anything, your children have not eaten anything. But there's a loaf of bread in the house next to you. And your children are starving to death, okay? Are you going to have a moral discussion with yourself at that point? Like, should I let my kids die, or should I go and steal that food? If his kids die, I don't give a shit, but I want my kids to live. That's when you become an absolute animal, right?
Yeah.
And that's where morals go out of the window. It's about self-preservation.
Yeah.
So you can either survive or you can have your morals. Again, it all comes down to individual preferences. There will be people who will not, there will be people who would not compromise with their morals. Sure, respect that. There will be people who will compromise with their morals.
Nothing wrong with that as well.
No, I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with it. I'm just saying it is what it is. I'm nobody to decide what's right and wrong.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say. There will be two kinds of people. But I'll tell you what. A lot of people who say this, that, oh no, I'd probably not go and steal a loaf of bread. Trust me, my friend, when you find yourself in that situation, your back is against the wall, more often than not, you will find yourself stealing that piece of bread.
100%. I probably would. I don't know. But it only makes sense because you have to kind of sustain yourself. That's all of this is all about.
Preservation is very important, yeah.
And
what a way to end the podcast, dude. What a way.
Yeah, like we've had some deep conversations to end this stuff. Self-preservation, guys.
Yeah, self-preservation, Salty. So make sure you don't have a slip of tongue when you're casting. Otherwise, I'm outsies.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure having Mamba. We've talked about a lot of things, but I think there's been value in most of the things he says. It's always value when he opens his mouth. Actually, it's piano when he opens his mouth. But
That's why I
anyway,
get paid to talk, huh?
anyway, guys, I'm just gonna ignore him and I'm finish this. I'll see you around in the next video as well. Because, ladies and gentlemen, do you guys like the video? Subscribe to the channel and watch out for other content as well. Because I'm gonna be more regular from this period on. We're deep diving into content and we're going to produce the best videos that the country has got to offer. But till then, ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Bye bye.